and welcome to another teacher talk session tonight. And tonight we are going to have another teacher trainer, an educator from different part of the world as usual. And tonight we are going to have our 122nd session with a different educator, as I mentioned. And she's ELT trainer and writer and also consultant, Sandy Millin. And I'm going to invite her, and when she comes we are going to start our live session with her. Let me invite her, then we can start. Her. I think there she is. Hello.
Oh.
Hello, Sandy.
Hello, I made it in the end.
Okay, wonderful. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, sure, we can hear you too. And before starting our conversation, I would like to say thank you very much for accepting my invitation for Teacher Talks and our 122nd session. It's really going to be a great honor to have you for this
Wow,
session.
thank you. It's an honor to be here as well. Thanks, Volkan.
You're welcome. And I wanted to start because I know that we are all busy and you are also busy. So if you're ready, we can start, Sandy.
Absolutely, go ahead.
Perfect. So I know about you, but maybe our followers would like to know about you. So can you tell us about yourself, please, and also a bit about your experiences too?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my name's Sandy. I currently live in Reading, just west of London, and I've been back in the UK for 2 years. Before that, I spent most of my teaching career working in private language schools, mostly for International House. And the last big job that I did was 6 years as a director of studies in Poland in International House Bydgoszcz. And then since then, I've been a teacher trainer and an ELT methodology editor and writer. And the other thing that I do is CELTA training, and I also write my own blog. So if people have heard of me, it's normally because of my blog, which I've been writing for 12 years now, maybe 13.
Wow.
I can't really remember, a long time. Anyway, most of my teaching career, I started in my 3rd year as a teacher. I started writing it.
I got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Would you like to add anything else or can I move
No,
to
I
another
think that
question?
pretty much sums it up.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And Sandy, what was your or were your turning point or points in your own education?
Yeah, so I think probably the biggest thing was realizing that I wanted to study languages and then discovering that I could do 3 languages at university. So
Wow.
being able to keep up the languages that I'd already learned and then add a new language. And I think that kind of continued my love of languages and made me just really appreciate the diversity of different languages and want to keep learning new languages. And then that desire to learn was also coupled with wanting to teach. Like, I learned very early on that I wanted to teach.
Sure.
And so as part of my language degree, you were able to spend a year abroad. And so I did a British Council teaching assistantship, and I taught English for a year while I was at university. And that experience was amazing. And I'd already volunteered teaching, but doing it a year kind of semi-professionally made me realize that that was what I wanted to do. And I've never regretted that decision. Yeah.
It's great. It's great. It's kind of a turning point for you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for sharing with us, Sandy. And I know that you have been teaching and also worked as a trainer for a long time. And probably in this period, you have tried different methodologies, maybe some different strategies or techniques in your lessons or your training sessions. So, and probably you have a kind of a philosophy of teaching. So what is it? What is your philosophy of teaching?
I think the main thing that I tell my trainees all the time is never do anything the students can do. And that goes right from moving furniture to set up a classroom, all the way through to answering questions. You know, don't answer a question that your students can answer. Don't ask a question that your students can ask. As much as possible, the students should be doing the work in the classroom, and I'm there to support them. I'm there to guide them, but they're the ones doing the work. The attention is on them. The the choice of what to learn next to some extent. I've never gone completely dogmatic, but the choice of how they want to do activities, for example. I never got to fully realize all of that. I'm doing it a bit more in my training, but I haven't been in the English classroom for a few years now, a couple of years now. So there's still things that I would like to experiment with, but that's my overriding philosophy is it's all about the students. Never do anything that the students could do.
Right. See, that's a really important point. You know, that sometimes we give them a tasks that even we cannot do it, but we are expecting the students to do it.
Yeah, so that's the other thing.
Really
always
interesting.
do everything. Always do everything that you expect your students to do. So if you want them to do an exercise, make sure you've done it first.
Sure, definitely. Okay. So I know if I'm not wrong, you are kind of a interested in speaking skills, and you have lots of the training about speaking. So, and when you think about that, what strategies do you suggest to use for the teachers to encourage their students to speak in English during their classes or lessons?
Yeah, so I think I used to get really frustrated. So when I first started teaching, I taught in the Czech Republic, and I used to get really frustrated when my learners were speaking Czech instead of English. And it took me a little while to realize why they were speaking Czech. So I think the first thing is to notice, when are they not speaking English and why might that be? So I tend to find that there are 2 or 3 main reasons why they're speaking their own language. So the first one is because they haven't understood the instructions of an activity. So the main question that I hear in their own language is, what are we supposed to do? So the first thing is to make sure that your instructions are clear, make sure you're demonstrating, make sure you're asking 1 or 2 questions to clarify that they've understood any potential problem areas, and then that reduces that likelihood of what are we supposed to be doing. The next reason that I found that they were using their own language rather than English is because I'd asked them to do a task that they didn't have the English available for. So to take a simple activity like a board game, for example, teaching them phrases like whose turn is it, roll the dice, that's my counter, not yours, teaching them some of these phrases and rewarding them for using those phrases. And also not assuming that they will remember them next time you play the board game. So next time you play a board game, elicit that language again, drill it again so that they're confident saying it. And then over time, that language will become part of their English, and then they'll be able to use it. And then the third reason that I found that people tend to use their own language rather than English is because of a lack of confidence. So they know how to say something in their own language, and they don't feel confident expressing that idea or trying to express that idea in English. So really building up the learner's confidence and supporting them to be able to express themselves. So it might be as simple as teaching them phrases like, how do you say X in English? Again, giving them that functional language to enable them to do things, but also allowing them sometimes to use their own language to get translations from classmates so that they can get support from their classmates as well, and gradually moving towards using English. I think it's okay to have some of their own language in the classroom as long as you're supporting them to use as much English as they can at that level.
I got it. Thank you very much, Sandy. And maybe my next question is kind of related with it, but sometimes we think that how can we, assess their speaking skills or give them, provide them the best feedback. So what do you suggest about it? How can the teachers assess and provide feedback on their students' speaking skills? What can you say about it or suggest?
I think one of the biggest problems that we have with assessing speaking skills is that speaking skills is huge. And it's like saying, how do we assess their grammar? We very rarely assess learners' grammar as a whole. We tend to focus in a lot more on something more specific. So for example, we're going to focus on their ability to use the past simple versus the present perfect. And I think it's the same thing with speaking skills. We need to decide exactly what it is that we're assessing, and we can do that with the learners as well. We can get their help deciding, how are we going to assess this particular set of speaking, come up with a set of criteria together. So this is something I've recently edited a book by Mark Heffernan and David Byrne that's called Overt Teaching, and this really taught me a lot about the idea of success criteria and of having lesson objectives that are broken down into separate aims. So for example, if the speaking aim of the lesson, I think this is one from the book, if the speaking aim of the lesson is that learners will be able to compliment somebody else on the clothes that they are wearing. So something like, I don't know, that's a nice scarf, I really like it, where did you get it? Some kind of conversation like this. That you need to break down that aim. So the learners need to revise the clothes vocabulary. They need to revise complimentary or compliments. They need to know how to respond to the compliments as well. So thanks, that's lovely to hear. I got it from here. This is a bad example because I'm coming up with it off the top of my head.
No.
Coming up with these criteria. So then saying, okay, so then to success criteria, to successfully compliment something else on what they're wearing, you need to identify the clothing that you're complimenting. You need to give a description of why you like it, and you maybe need to ask a question. So now we have these three criteria of what can we assess the learners on. Not only can we assess the learners on that, but they can assess themselves and they can assess their peers on it. So then that's about the content of what they're saying, but it also includes language assessment, because it shows you might include, a past simple question, where did you get it? Where did you buy it? Something like that. You might include some connected speech assessment, did you instead of did you. Once you've got those criteria, then the learners, then you've got something to assess them against. And I think that's then what you need to develop. So either for yourself or for the learners. Again, have a go at the speaking task yourself, record yourself and listen to it. What did you do to successfully complete that speaking task? And therefore, what can you assess the learners on?
I got it. Thank you. Thank you very much, Sandy, for your suggestions about it. Actually, I would like to ask you another question, but you just mentioned some of it, but maybe you would like to add a couple things on it. So how do teachers help the students, help their students to overcome their fear or hesitation in speaking English? Because this is really, the important point for us, for English teachers, or maybe other language teachers too. So you just mentioned something about it, but maybe would you like to add anything else about it?
Yeah, okay. So to help the learners overcome their fear, there are a few different things that you can do. So one thing I think is easy wins. So helping the learners realize that they can speak in English. So giving them short bits of speaking that they can do and that they can achieve and that they can feel like they have achieved it. So that's one thing, is giving them those boosts of I can do it. Yeah, exactly. Starting small. Another thing is breaking it down. So as I said before, so what do you need to do in order to complete this task? Here are 3 different things. Okay, maybe you can only do 2 of them right now, but still you can do 2 of them. Let's work on this 3rd one. So breaking down the tasks. Another thing that I think is really important, and I think is really neglected in a lot of classrooms, partly because teachers feel awkward or less confident doing it, is drilling language. I think we really don't drill language very much, but when we're on the other side, when we're on the student side of things, so one of the things I learned from learning languages is I need a lot of repetition, but I need support in that repetition. So if a teacher is happy with drilling and is able to give me feedback during a drilling process, then I will have said those phrases a lot of times. I know how they feel in my mouth. I've remembered them a little bit, so that when I go out into the world and I have to use that bit of language, or when there's a task next week in the lesson where I have to use that bit of language, I've got it in my head and I've got at least a vague idea of how it feels in my mouth, and therefore it's easier for me to produce it.
Yeah.
And I think
Got it.
building confidence as a teacher with your ability to drill language is really important, because then in turn you then build the learner's ability.
I see. Thank you very much, Sandy, for these suggestions about it, because really sometimes we face difficulties about the speaking it, because in the first time some of the students, they come to the class, maybe they have never they heard someone who speaks another language. So as the first time they speak different languages, speaking in the classrooms, and they shock and they don't know what to do. They're afraid of it and they hesitated and they're really confused about it. Thanks for the suggestions about it.
And on that note, I think it's therefore really important for teachers to put themselves into that position periodically. I think they have to remember what it's like to be a learner. And so going back to the situation where you don't understand anything, it can be in a language classroom, but if that's difficult for you to access or you're not interested, going back to learn a completely new skill of any kind. So learning a musical instrument, learning some art, learning to drive if you can't do that, learning to cook a new dish that you've never cooked before. Learning something new helps you to remember how it feels to be a student and how it feels to not know.
Yeah, that's that important point. Thank you, Sandy. Thank you very much. Let's move to another the question about it. But my next question is related with the writing, which is really another important, and it's really difficult for some students to write it. So what strategies can you suggest for teachers to help their students like generate ideas and organize their thoughts before writing? Because that's I think one of the most important part before writing something, and sometimes students really they face difficulties. They always think, oh, what I'm gonna write, I don't know how to start, I don't know what to do, and how should I start, I have no idea about it. So what can you suggest about it to us?
Yeah, so a couple of different ideas. So one is to let them speak their ideas first and record themselves and then listen back to what they have said. Because often we can come up with ideas faster when we're speaking than we can when we're writing, because we're used to generating ideas that way. So that's something that I do sometimes if I'm writing a blog post or a presentation, something like that. I might record what I want to say on my phone first, and then I'll listen back to it afterwards. Or if I'm writing a report for a student, something like that. So that's one idea. Another idea is to let them do it in their own language first. So sometimes if they have a go at writing, doing the writing or doing the brainstorming in their own language first, then they're not trying to come up with the language and the ideas at the same time. So I think sometimes the challenge for students is that they're trying to process too many things at once. And if you let them separate those two things, okay, first I'm going to process the ideas and I'm going to do that in my language. Then I'm just focusing ideas. And then I'm going to take those ideas and I'm going to think about the language. I'm going to think about how do I take that from Turkish to English or from Polish to English. I might not be able to express all of those ideas, but I can ask my teacher for some of the language. I can look it up in a dictionary or whatever. So that's the second idea. The third idea is from a book called Thinking in the EFL Classroom by Tessa Woodward. And I think this activity is actually available as a PDF from the Helbling Languages page. Give me 1 second and I'll get the book.
Sure.
Yes, it's Helbling, it's this one. This is
Thinking in the EFL Class.
Thinking in the EFL Class by Tessa Woodward. And it's Helbling Languages, and a handful of these activities are actually available as PDFs on the Helbling page.
Sure.
And this is an activity that's called Potato Talks. And what you do is you ask learners you bring a potato into the classroom and you ask learners to come up with as much information as they can about a potato. So they'll start off and they'll say things like, it's brown, it's white on the inside, you eat it. They'll start off with some quite basic things. And then you get them to come up with some questions about the potato. Okay, where does it come from? What do you eat it in? How long do you have to cook it for? And you get them to come up with a range of questions. And then, okay, can they come up with the answers to those questions? And what they do then with each of those things is you kind of categorize them. So you get them to come out with things like color, origin, use, things like this. So they have a kind of noun that goes with each of those. Then you give them another object like an apple, and you say to them, okay, what can you tell me about an apple? And the students will automatically come up with a lot more ideas because they have this like color, use, origin, things in their head. And then you can give them a more abstract topic, like, I don't know, the climate crisis, or, I don't know, house prices. So whatever it is, you can come up with a more, I'm just looking at the houses.
Different ideas, yes.
So some different topic. And then you get them to say, okay, what can you tell me about this topic? Can we add any more nouns to it? What other ideas can you come up with? And you're basically giving them a framework of questions that they can ask themselves about any topic. So whatever topic comes up in an exam, comes up in a lesson, they have a framework of questions that they can answer to help them to keep talking or to help them to keep writing. And that Potato Talks activity is fantastic. I've used it with various groups of students and they always get a lot out of it. And they also really enjoy the voyage of discovery, going from why does my teacher want me to talk about a potato to, oh my God, I can talk about loads of different topics. And as I say, I believe that it certainly was that Potato Talks activity specifically was available as a PDF from the Helbling website. Yeah.
I see. That's really great book because I think, just a moment, I had the same book, but I don't know. Yeah. In the EFL class.
Yeah.
This one. I have it here. Yeah.
There you go.
Here is the book. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Thank you. It's really nice book. Yeah, by Helbling. Yeah, it's really nice. Thanks to like Tessa Woodward. And it's a really amazing book, really.
There's some great activities in there. Exactly.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Sandy, thank you very much for these nice ideas about the writing. So I would like to ask you another question, but this time it's something about more personal. Like when you think about, I know that you have attended or give lots of maybe training sessions and presentations and seminars, or maybe in your country or maybe different countries, or on the web, maybe on a kind of a Zoom, online or face to face. When you think about these sessions, what was or were the most interesting situation or situations that you faced?
I remember doing a presentation at IATEFL, at the IATEFL conferences, very early on in presenting there. So I've been going there and presenting there for about 10 years. And I think this was my second or third presentation there. So it was still very new. I was still very early in my career. And my whole presentation was about listening skills and developing listening skills.
Nice.
And I had some audio as part of it, and the audio wouldn't play at all.
Oh my God.
and it was only, I can't remember if it was a talk or a workshop. I think it was a workshop, so I think I had 45 minutes. And it took me 20 minutes in various different ways. If I remember correctly, it took me about 20 minutes to get the audio to play in some way.
My God.
And a lot of my talk was centered around compare this audio to what you might hear in a course book. So that was quite frustrating. The other one that I remember was doing a webinar during the pandemic on my old laptop, and my laptop was fine for the couple of hours before because it was part of a conference and I was watching the conference. And then 5 minutes before the talk, after we'd already done the sound check and everything, my laptop decided to crash. And
oh my God.
My old laptop took 20 minutes to boot up. So I didn't get in until after I was supposed to start. I was a little bit stressed. That's when I decided that it was time to buy a new laptop.
That's great. So lucky you that. Thanks to all your laptop, it gave you a chance to buy a new one.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, luckily I don't tend to get stressed in these situations, but I was just like, why did you choose now?
It's really nice, but thank you for sharing with us these moments. Would you like to add any more moments?
No, I think those
can I pass? Oh, that's it. Okay.
Two major ones,
okay, thank you very much for your moments. And if I'm not wrong, you are an IITFL ambassador. If I'm not wrong. So, By the way, what does that mean, and what do you do by being IATFL ambassador? Can you just give some information about it?
Yeah, so IATEFL is the International Association of Teachers of English as a Foreign Language, which is a big mouthful, which is why we normally say IATEFL.
Yeah.
And it's an international teaching association that's based in the UK, but it has members from all over the world. And every year there's a big conference that's a 4-day conference that happens in the UK. But there are also lots of other events that happen through the year. So there's regular free webinars. There are 16 special interest groups with different topics. So, for example, I'm on the committee of the materials writing special interest group, the SIG. And the different SIGs have their own events. So they have webinars, they have online conferences, face-to-face conferences. And there's all kinds of things going on as part of IATEFL. I've been a member since 2012, and I've been an ambassador since last year, since about 12 months ago.
Oh, congratulations.
The idea of the ambassadors basically is that we tell people about how great IATEFL is, which I think it is. So that's not hard for me to do. Yeah, we're here to talk about IATEFL and to share the benefits of being a member, basically. So for me, as I say, I've been a member for since 2012. Or since 2011 actually, and as part of IATEFL I've massively developed the network of teachers that I know and that I'm connected with. I've learned lots of new skills through volunteering, so I've learned how to, I set up the, I don't have a diplomatic passport sadly. I set up,
yeah, definitely.
That would be helpful. I helped to set up the IATEFL blog, and I've reorganized the Morsig website, so I've learned a lot of kind of technical skills as part of it. I'm now the events coordinator for Morsig, so I'm learning how to set up how to organize events like you're doing, Vulcan, so like setting up webinars, coordinating those with people. But then like in my professional life, I've developed a lot of my teaching. I learned more about what was possible for me to do within English language teaching. I've learned more. I've learned lots of different techniques. I've been connected to different classrooms. So for example, somebody I met through IATEFL, I was a guest in her classroom in Argentina, for example. So basically through IATEFL, I've made lots of connections and I've learned lots of skills, and I just love it as an organization, and I'm very happy to be an ambassador for it, basically. And if anybody's interested in IATEFL, they're always welcome to ask me questions about it.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, if you have any questions about IATFL, you can ask her. You can ask her directly, and you can find her on LinkedIn, and you can ask the questions about IATFL. By the way, I've been IATFL in 2015, which is in Manchester.
In Manchester.
That was awesome. Yeah, I took 2015.
Yeah, I think
that was awesome.
I know it's difficult to get to because it's expensive, but I think if anybody ever has the chance to go, the conference is the best week of my year every year. That's like one of the highlights of my year, like personally and professionally. So yeah,
maybe you can provide a kind of a scholarship.
I mean, I wish I had enough money to provide scholarships for other people.
Yeah, for IATFL, and I can be the first one to get a scholarship. Anyway, thank you very much. And let me ask you, if I'm not wrong, Sandy, before moving as a teacher trainer, you were working as a teacher, English teacher, and you were teaching, and then you changed your mind to become a teacher trainer, and you stopped teaching, I think, for the kids. And how did you start doing teacher training, and why did you decide this?
Yeah, so it's actually a more kind of gradual process. So I actually started doing bits of teacher training when I was still a full-time teacher. So one of the ways that I started doing teacher training was doing things like presentations at conferences. And I started that from my second or third year of teaching. So I was sharing ideas that I tried out in the classroom. I was talking about books that I'd read, for example. And I just kind of got a taste for sharing what I knew about teaching. And then I started to do a little bit of mentoring at my school. So I was working with less experienced teachers and helping them in the classroom. So for example, new CELTA trainees would come and observe me in the classroom, and then I would talk to them about what I'd done, and again, sharing what I knew about teaching that way. Then I became a director of studies, and I started running workshops within our school. And at the end of the year, I became a CELTA trainer. But I don't think that you have to be a CELTA trainer to be a teacher trainer. Absolutely not. But through training up to train others, I learned how to do observations, and I learned how to do better quality input sessions. So I was doing them already, but I learned how to improve the quality of them. And then I did the NILE, the Norwich Institute of Language Education. I did their module in teacher development. I think it's actually called trainer development. And that taught me a lot of the kind of theory behind teacher training. I think that's kind of the equivalent of doing a Delta, but for teacher training. It gives you the theory behind the practical knowledge that you might have for your teaching, but for your training, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And each of those kind of steps, each of those things that I did, then made me, like, it deepened my knowledge of training. So I think one of the things is also trying to train in different contexts. So presenting at conferences, online, offline. If you can, in different places. I know that's not always possible for people, but if you're able to travel, even locally. I did my first presentations in Brno, where I was working, and I think I did one in Bratislava as well. So that's an hour and a half away. So it sounds like really distant, but it's 90 minutes away. So even even being able to do them at local schools, things like that, I think that develops your training skills. And I think doing those things over time, that means that teachers start to hear about you, and then you're able to, if you want to transition a little bit more to teacher training, or to balance the training and the teaching.
I see. I got it. Thank you. Thank you very much, Sandy, about it. Okay, so it's not an easy thing, and it's not an easy process, I think, to become a trainer. It takes time. Now you can, if you one day you wake up and you say, okay, I'm gonna be a trainer now, I'll leave it. You can't do that. You need to get some, I think, the training before become a trainer.
And not necessarily. I would say you just need to build up some experience first. If you can get training, that's amazing. But a lot of teacher trainers actually don't get any training in training, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But building up some experience, I think, is really important. The same as it takes a long time for us to learn to teach, training is a different kind of teaching. So we can take some of the things that we know from teaching, we can take that over to training. So things like managing the classroom, planning a lesson or an input session, we can take some of those things over, but we need to build our knowledge and our awareness of the subject. So we have the same as when you learn your own language, you don't have an awareness necessarily of the grammar of it, of how you speak, of which words you choose and why. When you're an experienced teacher, you lose that awareness of the minutiae of what you're doing. Okay, why did I make that decision? Why did I choose those materials? Why do you, why do you put those activities in that order, for example? So you need to be able to go back and break down those things to be able to then share them with somebody else, or help them to learn how to do that.
By the way, thank you very much, Sandy. And there's a question. And Christina is asking, hello, by the way, Christina, it's nice to see you here. And she's asking, can you read the question?
It's scrolled up a bit. I don't know if I can see it.
What do you do for your own teacher educator PD? She's asking.
Yeah, so this is, professional development is kind of my passion. That's one of the reasons that I really like IATEFL, because I get a lot of professional development that way. One of the things, in fact, I met Christina, I think if I'm looking at the picture, I think I met Christina at IATEFL this year. And
nice. Probably.
She's in the teacher training and education SIG special interest group, if it's the person that I'm thinking it is. So one of the things that I did is attend events like that. So going to a lot of talks about teacher training, and they can be online or offline. So thanks, Christina.
Oh, she got your books.
She's got my books, which is great. One of them is about teacher training, about developing yourself as a teacher trainer. Yeah, attending webinars, attending sessions, and through that meeting other trainers and being part of trainer-specific groups. So something like a teacher training and education special interest group, the teacher development special interest group via TEFL, but also I'm in a Facebook group, a closed Facebook group for CELTA and Delta trainers, where we quite often will share questions specifically about teaching CELTA and Delta. And also just having conversations with teacher trainer friends, the same that you do in a staff room with teaching friends. You know, having conversations about what works, what doesn't work, you know, why sometimes you tell people 18,000 times to do a particular thing in the classroom and they still don't do it. You know, this kind of thing. The same kind of frustrations that you have as you know, as an English teacher potentially. You have similar things as a teacher trainer. And I think being able to talk to other people about them, to reflect on your training, I think is really useful.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. I hope the answer is satisfying, Christina, for you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Let's move to another question, Sandy. Because I think, by the way, time flies, you know. It's like, oh, we're coming the end of our sessions and we have a couple questions. So I wanted to finish my question by asking it. Okay, as we know that, you know, the technology and the latest developments and trends, it's really not easy to follow. Sometimes we really, you know, stay behind them. But when you think about yourself, how do you stay updated with the latest developments and trends in English language teaching? How do you do that?
Yeah, so leading on from what I was just saying, some of it is about being part of groups and seeing what people are talking about. I joined LinkedIn in October. I didn't like it before because I got frustrated with the amount of notifications and things. And now actually I find I'm doing a lot of my professional development on LinkedIn. So I really see the kind of conversations that people are having, the kind of things that they're talking about. For example, with ChatGPT, obviously that's the big thing at the moment, like seeing how people are using it, the ideas that they're sharing, the questions that they've got on LinkedIn, for example. So I think being part of conversations like that is really important. Another thing that's still important for me, although I think for a lot of people it's kind of died out, I still read a lot of blogs. So I subscribe to quite a few different blogs, and I use a reader called Feedly, Feedly, to gather them all together in one place. So I sign on to that once a week and I have a look through the blogs. It is a couple of weeks since I've had time to look at any of them, but by reading the blogs, again, I see how people are using these things in the classroom. The other thing is that I realized that I'm not going to keep up with everything, and I stopped worrying about it because when I first started with online professional development, so again, that was 2010, that then at that point in time, everything was on Twitter. Twitter was where all the conversations were happening. I got really stressed at the beginning that I couldn't possibly follow all of the links. I couldn't read everything. I couldn't try all the tools. And now I'm just like, that's fine. That's okay. If something is important enough, it will come up many hundreds of times, and then I will explore it when I have time. So, for example, ChatGPT, my fiance was talking about it. He's nothing to do with English teaching. He was talking about it because he'd read about it on Reddit, of the silly things that ChatGPT could do. And then 2-3 days later, I started seeing things about it being in teaching. And then a month later, I started, I'd already seen a lot of people going, oh my God, it's the end of education, and what are we going to do? And it's the end of essays and whatever. And then at IATEFL, a lot of people were going, oh, I wish I knew about ChatGPT before I put in my talk. I wish I could have talked about it this year. And there's already people like Jo Soke, for example, Josoke. She's Jo Short and Simple on Twitter, and I think she's on
Uh-huh.
Instagram as well. Um, she's doing a lot of presentations about ChatGPT. She actually did one today or yesterday, I think, for the British Business English Special Interest Group for BSIG. About what's the point of learning emails if learning to write emails if ChatGPT will write them for you. And so she was talking about how to actually teach with that. And so, yeah, so I just follow the conversations gradually. And I will say, I haven't tried ChatGPT yet, because every time I went to try it originally, they didn't have any, subscriptions left. It was when they kept running out of space. So it was always like full every time I tried.
I
And
see.
now I'm like, I know what it does. I don't need it right now. I can't be bothered. I know how it works. When I want it, I'll try it. And I think that's my general attitude to this kind of technology. I know it exists. When it's important for me, I'll go and play with it. And until then,
I know.
who cares?
Okay, but until you need it, you don't need
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Exactly. And I think that's a good phrase. Until I need it, I don't need it. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Sandy. Okay, so let's move to the another question, Sandy. Like, how do you see yourself in 10 years? Will you still be a trainer or try another jobs?
I will absolutely still be in English language teaching. I can see myself doing this until I die. I don't imagine retiring even. I feel like I say this, my granddad never retired. Like, he was working from his hospital bed. And I feel like I'll be doing the same thing as him. Maybe not from a hospital bed, but just because he was so passionate about what he did. So he was a lecturer in marine safety. And he was so passionate about that and conveying that to other people that he just wanted to do it all the time. He tried to retire at least 2 or 3 times. And my grandma was like, come on, you're going to retire. And then he just never did. He just always picked up other things. And I can absolutely see that that's what I'm going to do, because I love what I'm doing and I find it fascinating. I find
Perfect.
it really interesting. I'm learning all the time. So I absolutely think that in 10 years' time, I
Exactly.
will still be doing it. I'll be training, I'll be writing. Hopefully, I'll be doing a bit more teaching than I am right now. Teaching's a little bit on hold because of my dissertation right now. So once my dissertation is done, then hopefully I'll be able to actually get back in the classroom at the moment. Because I also think that as a trainer, you should still be teaching. Like, I don't think that I don't think I should be talking about teaching if I'm not doing it as well.
I
So,
see. I got it. Thank you. Thank you
yeah.
very much. It's great that you're not gonna retire.
No, I don't plan to.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay. Sandy, let's move to another question. Thank you very much, by the way. That sometimes when the time it's come, you think that, oh, I wish I could have this superpower and I could do that right now. So probably most of us, to think that moment. And when you think about yourself, if you could have one superpower to use in the classroom, what would it be and how would it help you?
I think that weirdly the superpower would actually be directed at the students rather than directed at me. I often say that my job isn't to teach English or to teach teaching, it's to teach confidence. And I think if I had a superpower, it would be to stop people being scared in my classroom, um, to give them the confidence about how to about being able, like, just trying things, basically, to give them the confidence to try to say a new phrase, to try to express what they want to say, to try a different kind of activity in the classroom as a teacher. I think that would be my superpower, and it would be directed at my students, or to my students,
Wonderful.
basically. Yeah.
Great, great superpower. Thank you. By the way, there's a question, Sandy. Hussein is asking, it says, may I ask a question about how can I improve my speaking skills? He's asking. Can you just give him one or two suggestions?
Yeah, I think so. We talked earlier on about how teachers can help learners improve their speaking skills, but one important thing is that teachers should be able to give learners advice about improving their speaking skills as well. So it kind of depends what level you're at. The easy thing to say is always speak more, But as a language learner myself, I'm rubbish at taking opportunities to speak. I don't actually, even if somebody else speaks a language that I speak, I tend to speak to them in English. And I don't always practice what I preach in that way. But I think one thing to do to improve your confidence when you're listening to somebody speaking, for example, on the radio, on a podcast, on a song, something like that, listen and try and repeat what they're saying. So shadow what they're saying, and that can give you practice at producing things quickly, but without having to think about exactly what you're saying. So that's one thing about getting your mouth around the sounds. Another thing to do is to record yourself. So for example, at the beginning of my second year of Spanish at university, I recorded a little a video of me speaking Spanish. And so I was just saying some really basic things about myself in Spanish, whatever I could think of to say. I didn't have a specific plan. But I was saying, for example, you know, I live in England, I'm studying French, German, and Spanish, this kind of thing, some just really basic facts. And I kept that recording and I emailed it back to myself a year later. And then I recorded myself again a year later. And then I played the two videos one after the other. And that really boosted my confidence because it showed me how much I'd improved. So I think recording yourself regularly, you can also listen back to the recordings and see, could you correct yourself? Could you upgrade things? Is there more you could say about a particular topic? Going back to the potato talks thing that we were talking about. Is there more you could say about a particular topic? Is there a different expression that you could use? Maybe you could look up some new words. You can have a kind of word of the week or a phrase of the week to try and get into your speaking.
Sure.
So I think giving yourself little challenges like that, I think is really useful.
Thank you very much. You're welcome. You're welcome, saying this. I hope the answer is make you happy about it. That's a nice answer for your question. Thank you, Sandy. All right, so Sandy, let's move to another question. Just the two questions left, by the way. And think that we finished the interview and you step outside your house or home and find a lottery ticket that ends up winning $10 million.
Wow.
What would you do?
I would go traveling. I know.
Nice.
In theory, I would drag my fiance with me. I would drag him with me, but I'm not sure if he would come or not, because I'm definitely the traveller amongst it between us. But I would absolutely go to a lot of the places that I haven't been to yet. And the other thing that I would do, because it wouldn't all be for me, I don't need that amount of money. I would want to support charities that support education. So, for example, when we get married, we're getting married somewhere where the money from the wedding gets reinvested into education, because it's an educational place Monday to Friday, and they do weddings on Saturday and Sunday. And so the money from the weddings goes into the educational work they do during the week. So I think being able to support education in different ways, so for example education for women in different places, or giving people access to higher education, for example. So a nice balance of traveling and some educational charity work. Yeah,
to check what's going on over there and support them, and probably you wouldn't retire.
No.
No, okay, that's good.
Because I would get bored in about 5 minutes.
Okay, then. Thank you very much, Sandy, for sharing your ideas about it. Okay, and here is my last and the most difficult question. Are you ready for it? Yeah. Okay, here we go. What is your motto?
Oh,
yeah, I said
that
it's
is a difficult question. I think my generally the motto that I say that I have is carpe diem, which is basically seize the day, because you never know when you're not going to be able to do what you're doing anymore. You never know when you're going to get ill, you never know when you're going to die, and so enjoy what you're doing and do it. Don't be afraid to try things out. Don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid to explore, even if exploring means just walking down a different street in your town. Don't be afraid to learn about the world, because that that just keeps you interested. It keeps you interested in life, and it keeps you interested in your
Uh-huh.
work. It keeps you interested in the people around you. So I think, yeah, carpe diem.
Got it. Okay, thank you very much. So we can say that enjoy what you're doing. That's
Yes.
your motto, we can say.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Sandy. All right, that's all my questions, Sandy. And thank you
Thank
very
you, Rob.
much for answering all of them. And before ending our live session, would you like to add anything else?
I just wanted to say that if anybody would like to connect with me, then I'm on LinkedIn, and you're also welcome to follow me on my blog, and then you'll find out other things that I'm doing. You can find out about my training, you can find out about workshops, about my books, anything you want to. And if anybody wants to ask me more questions about IATEFL, you're very welcome to do that as well.
Okay, thank you. And one more question. How do they get your book if they want to buy or if they
Yeah.
want to get it? How can they do that?
Yeah, so my books, there's a link on my blog. So Sandy Millin, SandyMillin.wordpress.com. And there's a link on there that says my books, and that has all the information about the books and how to buy them. And so if you're a teacher who wants to help your learners develop the speaking, there's a book there to help you with that. And then there are two reflective books. So there's one which is for teachers reflecting on their own teaching, and there's one for trainers or people who would like to become trainers
Uh-huh.
to reflect on their skills as a trainer, or potential skills as a trainer.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you very much, Sandy. And before ending it, I would like to say one more time, thank you very much for being with us tonight. And it was really great. And especially you spent, tell us your suggestions and you give your ideas about our questions. And especially the most important thing, you spend your time here with us. That was wonderful. Thank you very much, Sandy. And
Thank you for
Sandy Millin,
inviting me.
yeah. Sandy Millin was with us with the Teacher Talks 122nd, and that was it. We had a real fruitful session with her, and we are going to be here next week on the same day at the same time, as you know that every Monday at 9 p.m. according to Turkey time. So until the next time, take care of yourselves and take care of yourself, Sandy. That was wonderful, and take care of yourself,
Thank you.
our followers. And until the next time, goodbye, bye bye,
Bye
and
bye.
peace, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your night or day. Bye.
Bye bye.